Hi, my name is Gloria Headland, and I am here tonight to talk to you about 3 frameworks: Core Location, MapKit, and MediaPlayer. So we'll start with Core Location. This is a framework that basically enables the device to figure out where you are. There is no UI for this. The basic object in Core Location is a CL location object, and it has these properties. A coordinate, a CL location coordinate 2D, which is a classic C struct containing a latitude and a longitude, both of which are doubles. It's got a CL location distance to measure altitude, which is in meters, a speed, which is measured in meters per second, a course, which is a heading. This is measured in degrees, with 0 being north, and it goes clockwise. And then an NSDate timestamp property, which puts a timestamp to your location when it was taken. So the most important property is probably the coordinate. This is a read-only C struct with latitude and longitude. And this is just an approximation, an approximate location. And it's going to be dependent on how much accuracy you specify that you need in your application. So there are 2 other properties of a location, one of which is horizontal accuracy and one of which is vertical accuracy. The vertical accuracy being, pertaining to your altitude. And these are both measured in meters. And so these are the different types of accuracy that you can specify that you want. The best one, or the one that's most accurate, is the KCL location accuracy best for navigation. And if you're going to use this, this is continuous GPS. You're going to want to assume that your user is plugged in, to their cigarette lighter in their car. This is like the turn-by-turn type of accuracy that you're going to want. And then there's KCL location accuracy best, which also uses GPS, but it's not continuous. There's KCL location accuracy nearest 10 meters and KCL location accuracy 100 meters, which uses Wi-Fi. And this can be pretty accurate, especially in urban areas. So that's another way that the device will figure out where you are. It figures out which wireless networks are around you and then can determine where you are according to what wireless network you're in. And then to figure out what city you're in, there's KCL location accuracy kilometer and KCL location accuracy 3 kilometers, and these use cell towers and are the lowest power, so they won't drain your battery that much. So the rule of thumb is that you want to set this as low as possible for your given application. So if you want to use Core Location in your app, you're going to want to do these 5 things. First, you're going to want to import the Core Location framework. It does not automatically come with a project when you open up Xcode, and I'll show you how to do that. It's really easy just to link to the library. And after you've imported the framework, you're going to want to import Core Location, corelocation.h at the top of the file that's going to use the Core Location. And then you are going to want to create a CL location manager, and you're going to want to set yourself as the delegate. You're going to want to implement this protocol, CL location manager delegate. And then you do want to see what type of hardware is available on the device, and if the user has said that yes, you can use the location services. And then after that, you're going to want to configure the manager to the type of location updating that you want, provided it's available. And then you can start the manager monitoring for the location changes. So this is the hardware check that you would do. These are all class methods that return bools. So you want to see if location services is enabled. And then you can start checking for the user permission, and I'll show you that in the demo. Then you want to see if the heading's available. Like, not all devices have a compass in them, so this won't always be available. Significant location change monitoring is available. That's only on cellular devices. And then this thing called region monitoring, and this is only on certain devices. This is like region monitoring would be their geographical regions to check and see when you've entered a certain region that you've set. For example, like Siri on the latest iPhone uses this. If you want to say like Siri, remind me to take out the trash when I get home, it would use this region monitoring to figure out when you got home. So you don't want to forget to check any of this stuff. And another property that you can set in your location manager is a purpose. That's an NS string. And if you set this to be something, this will be used when you're asking the user for permission. So you can tell them why you want, why you're asking if you can use the location services. Okay, so core location monitoring. So you're going to want to choose the type of monitoring that you want to do this. So you can set your desired accuracy. And then you can also set the CL location distance filter, which will say, like, okay, give me an update if the user moves, over 1,000 meters, something like that. And then there are two methods to start updating the location, to stop updating the location. And then you can receive notifications by doing this in your delegate. Location manager did update to location from location. So I think I can go to the demo. Okay, so here's my demo. Got a simple. This is a simple app. There's just a button. You press it, and you get a location. And I'm just going to show the location in these text fields. And these are, if you want to, I'm just using this text field, I guess, just because I like the look of it. It's not, I've got this button here, user and interaction enabled. I've got this clicked off, so the user can't actually type anything in there, even though it's an input text field. So let's look at the code for this. Oh yeah, so if you want to use core location, the first thing that you're going to have to do, which I've done, is click on target up here, and then click down here on the target here, and then you're going to want to go to build phases. And this is how you import the library. You're going to click on this button here, and then see this core location framework, that wasn't in there to get, I added it in, but to add in a framework, you just click this plus sign here, and then you can start typing whatever framework you want, select the framework, and do add. So that's how I got that framework in there. And then it just popped up actually up here somewhere, and then I just dragged it into my framework directory. You probably don't even need to do that. It probably doesn't matter where it is, but I just like to keep things neat. So I dragged it down here to be with my other frameworks. Okay, so after I did that, then I also had to import core location. So that's done right here. And I'm using these carets instead of the quotation mark. I'm basically just following how this is how they import the UI kit, for example. So you just do it that same way. That's how you import the framework. So I've done that. And then we can take a look at some of my code. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a location manager, right? I'm initting a location manager. I'm making myself the delegate. Yep. And then I'm making myself the delegate, and then I'm setting the desired accuracy. In this case, I'm going to go for the best accuracy, and then I'm going to set myself a distance filter of 1,000 meters. And then I'm putting in a purpose, and then you'll see that it gets used. So let's run this. Okay, so if I click on Get My Location, here's my purpose. I would like to get your location so that I can show you your latitude and longitude, and then you can allow or not allow. And so if I press yes, see this latitude and longitude, this is actually not where we are. So the simulator itself, it doesn't, I think sometimes it does give you your precise location, other times it doesn't. But in iOS 5, I guess there's this new thing right here in the debugger. This button, you can press that, and then you can simulate a location. So, and that's where that's coming from. So this is, I guess, the location of Johannesburg, South Africa. So before I was getting zeros. So if you find that you're not being able to get a location in your simulator, you might have to actually simulate a location. to do that. I don't think it usually picks up your actual location. All right. So, it showed us the purpose, and then this is where I'm checking to see if the location services are enabled. I've set this can do. This is a bool. I'm setting it to no, and basically I'm going to set it to yes if I'm able to get the location services. So first, I'm checking to see if the location services are enabled, and then if they are enabled, I also need to make sure that I was authorized to get the location. So I'm going through the switch statement, and I'm checking to see, this is if the user authorized, and then this is, if I was denied. And then this case too, there's also parental controls, which you might want to think about if you design an app for kids, for example, like there are parental controls that can restrict location services, in which case you wouldn't even want to really ask if you could, because they won't be allowed to change those. And then there's this strange case, KCL authorization status not determined, and you'll find using the simulator with core location is a little strange. Actually, if you deny the location services in the simulator, on the real device it will come up KCL authorization status denied, but in the simulator it actually comes up not determined, and I'm not sure why that is, but that was what I found. So I've got all that set, and then here is when you press that get location button, it goes to this method here, IB action get location, and I'm basically saying, okay, so if I can't get your location, I'm going to give you this alert, and if I can, then I'm going to do self location manager start updating location, and then my delegate is going to call this method when that first happens, and then also every time I update the location, which in this case I think I send it to be 1,000 meters, so it would do this every time I moved 1,000 meters. This is location manager, did update to location from location, and this is where I'm setting my new latitude and longitude. Okay, so that's basically it for the core location part.
Would it be able to get the reverse geolocation?
Yeah, there is, I didn't look too carefully into that, but there is geocoding, and reverse geocoding is provided. I didn't look too carefully at that, but I'm pretty sure that is provided. Yeah, it's part of the core location API. Yeah, there is geocoding in there. So.
You said reverse, you mean describing where something is.
Yeah, that would, so geocoding I think is when you pass in an address and you get the latitude and longitude, and then the reverse is when you pass in the latitude and longitude and get an address out of that. I think that's how it works. So, okay. All right, so now moving on to MapKit. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Great. Okay, so this is a different framework altogether, often used in conjunction with core location, but this is the MapKit framework. And similarly to core location, if you're going to use this, you want to import that framework, that library, link in the library, and then import mapkit/mapkit.h. And the main thing in the MapKit framework is this MK map view, and that's a UI view that displays a map. And then a property of that map is this NSArray annotations, which is an NSArray of annotation objects. Now, an annotation object is a marker or a pin that will that will show you a precise location on the map. And the annotation object must implement this MK annotation protocol. So this is like a new use of protocols. I think up until now we've only seen protocols used in delegation, but using this protocol here is specifying that this object has to implement, it has to be of type MK annotation, and the rule for implementing that protocol is just that you have to have a coordinate, and then optionally you can have a title or a subtitle. So those are the annotation objects. And then other things that annotations can do are they can call out when you click on them. When you click on the marker, it can do this thing called a call out. which by default will show the title and the subtitle in a little box. And it can also have left and right accessory views. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is a MapKit annotation with a callout. So the annotation is the pin itself. And then when you click on that pin, it's doing a callout. If you set that, it can show a callout. And by default, the title of the annotation is there and the subtitle. In this case, I just have the address. And then it's got this left callout accessory view and a right callout accessory view. In this case, this is just a UI image, and this is a detailed disclosure button. And these views can, I think, be pretty much whatever you want to put in there. Was there?
You could have been using your geolocation to show where you are.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Your prior example of find out where you're located.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So the question is, can you show your location here? And you can. So you could link core location with MapKit to actually show your location in here. And then MapKit itself also has you can show your own location with MapKit just saying, I think you just set like show user location or something, which will give you an annotation right where you are. It doesn't do a lot more than that, but MapKit does also have location enabled. Yeah, the core location, I mean, I guess the core location is, you would use that if you didn't really have a map. You know, if you just, I mean, there are a lot of applications where you just you want to know where somebody is to show them, like, tell them where the nearest Starbucks is or something, but you don't really have a map. And then MapKit also does have its own location. And then you can also use them in conjunction together, because I think you get more stuff with core location than you do with just the MapKit locations. So the MK annotation protocol, this is used by those pins, the annotation objects, and this tells the objects what methods and properties they have to implement. So they all need to have a coordinate, which obviously you need to know where to be able to put it. And then the optional properties are a title and a subtitle. And to add or remove annotations to your map view, you would do add annotation. You could add a single one, or you could add annotations, and you could add a whole array of annotations. Similarly, there's a remove annotation and remove annotations. Okay, so the MK map view delegate. These are the different methods for creating an annotation. The method that's called when an annotation is selected, and then a special method that's called when the accessory view is touched. So this is pretty similar to the UI table view delegate. Creating an annotation uses this method map view for annotation, which is similar to the table view. I think it's cell for row index. It's similar to that one. And so this basically will just tell you what map view or what annotation view to put for that annotation. And so then when an annotation is selected, map view did select annotation view is the method in your delegate that's going to be called, and that's when you're actually clicking on the pin. And then this callout accessory view, this is not to be confused with clicking on the pin. This is this is a very useful method for when you are touching on either the left or the right accessory view of the callout. This will be implemented. So you remember where I had that detail disclosure button? If I was going to try to go somewhere with that button, I wouldn't have to implement my own target and do all that stuff. I could just I would use this method to say what would happen when I touched on that button. Okay, so the properties of the MK annotation view. It's got, let's see, an image, and this image is not to be confused with the image in the left or the right callout accessory view. This image is, if you wanted to have it look like something other than a pin, you would set that image to be whatever you wanted it to be. And then it's got, the left callout accessory view, the right callout accessory view properties, and then this property bool enabled. If you set it to no, then when you click on it, nothing's going to happen. It's got a CG point center offset property, which specifies if you want it offset from its coordinate. That is, if you want the image that the annotation is to be offset from the coordinate. And then a draggable property. And if you're going to set this to yes, then you have to make sure that your annotation is implementing a setter for the coordinate as well as a getter. Because when you drag it, you're going to be obviously setting a new coordinate. So creating annotations, like I said, this is the method that's a lot like the table view one, like creating cells at a table. It's this map view for annotation method. The first thing that you're going to do is check and see if there's any markers available in the reuse pool. Just like with the cells, we had a pool of reusable cells. Well, in your map, say if you have a map that's got a whole array of annotations, when you scroll around on that map, some of the pins will go off the map, and then you'll go to another area and more pins will come on. Well, it's reusing all those pins. So it's going to check and see if there's any pins available to use, and that's what it's doing here. MK pin annotation view pin equals map view DQ reusable annotation view with identifier pin. And if there aren't any, then it's going to have to make a new pin, right? So it allocks and inits a new pin with a specific annotation and a reuse identifier pin. So this is where you're setting the reuse identifier here. When you're allocating a new pin, you don't actually set this in the storyboard like you did with the table view. And then after you've got the pin, then you would set the pin annotation to be your annotation. And notice that this does happen twice if it's not a DQ. So if you're making a new pin, then you're going to be knitting it with an annotation, and then you're setting the annotation again, which isn't a big deal. And then you return the pin. And I'm very briefly going to talk about overlays. An overlay is, it's a type of annotation with a point and a map area. So it can be like a circle, it can be a rectangle, it can be a line, it can be some sort of polygon that you want to show on your map. And similarly to the annotations, you can add an overlay, you can remove an overlay. And to create an overlay, you do this map view for overlay. So let's check out the demo. Okay, so here I've just got one view controller, and it's pretty easy. You just take a map view, drag it onto your view controller if you want to use it. And then, again, I imported that MapKit library. And here I'm importing MapKit /mapkit.h. Actually, I don't need this CL location manager. Oops, sorry. Might be messing up my code. Okay, so I've got a map view that I've actually linked to my storyboard, this IB outlet. And let's see what else I've got in here. Oh, so if you were going to use, I don't actually really use this, but if you were going to have a map view and have a whole bunch of annotations, to ensure that they're always in sync, it might be a good idea to put in an update map view method, which would basically update the view. And so you would have a setter for your map view in which you would set the map view to map view and then do self-update map view. And then you would have a setter for your array of annotations, in which case you would set your annotations to equal your annotations and then do this self-update map view. And then you'd go ahead and update your map view. So basically, each time you changed your map or you added an annotation, they would sync up. And so then you could do if self map view annotations. So if you have annotations, go ahead and remove all of them and then add them all. So it just sort of updates stuff and keeps them in sync. I don't really use that in this particular program, but I just thought I'd put that in there. So to do this, you're going to want to init a map view, which, well, actually, I've already got that. I knitted that in my storyboard. And then you want to set the map view delegate, and here I'm setting it to to myself. And then you're going to want to define a map span, right? And so here's a span, and I can't actually really tell you what these numbers mean. Sorry, this part I'm not too sure about, but this is just, I played around with some numbers. This was the span that I wanted to show. And then I'm just going to show some record stores, actually. This is what this app does. And so I've got 3 record stores. I've got their coordinates. I just, this is maybe not the best way to do this, but I, found their coordinates, and I'm hard coding them in there. So here's Weirdo Records. Here's Cheapo Records' coordinates. Here's In Your Ear Records coordinates. And so then now I've got, I'm going to create a region, right? And I've got to set the span and the center of that region. And so I'm doing that. I'm going to center this on Weirdo Records. And here's where I'm centering the map: self, map view, set region, region animated, yes. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the annotations for these record stores. So I'm making custom annotations. So I've actually got a custom annotation class here. Right, and this class is implementing the MK annotation protocol. Right, so it has to have a coordinate, and then I'm also implementing the title, the subtitle. I'm going to give each one of these a logo, and I'm actually going to use that logo in the callout. I'm going to set that to be the accessory view. I've got this URL that we can ignore for now. And then I've got a setter, an initializer init with coordinate down here. So all I'm doing in this .m file is just initting it. So I'm just basically giving it the coordinate and then returning. So we'll go back to map view controller. And so now here I'm creating my annotations. So this first annotation, I'm going to just give it the title Weirdo Records, the address, the logo, and then, well, I'll tell you what, I'm also going to show the movies when you click the detail controller, and so that's what this URL is. I'm setting the URL to that. And then, so I'm doing that for Cheapo and In Your Ear as well. And then here, you don't have to do this, but I'm putting all the annotations in an array, and then I'm going to do self map view add annotations. I could have also added each annotation separately by doing add annotation. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an overlay to the map. So I'm creating a circle, and then I'm just going to add the circle to the map. Okay? And the methods for actually creating the map views. So this is the creating the annotation view, right? And so this creates each marker, the markers at the record stores. So I first have to get a marker, and I'm using this DQ reusable annotation view with identifier. And if there are none available, make a new one, and there's going to be none available because I'm only making 3. They all show up on the same map, so they're actually not going to be reused in this case. But so I'm going to make a new marker, and then I'm going to say that, it can show a callout. I'm setting that to yes. And then this is how you add the accessory views. So marker right callout accessory view is going to be a UI button with type of type detail disclosure. And then the marker left callout accessory view, I want to make that the UI image view, and I'm going to set the logo in that. I don't actually set the logo of that record store until the user clicks on it. So here I'm just actually allocating a UI image view, and I'm giving it this size frame. And again, these numbers are hard-coded in there, and maybe this isn't the best thing to do, but I just found that that was the dimensions that looked best in the callout accessory. And so then I'm going to set the marker annotation to equal that annotation. And here I'm changing the marker image to be, it's actually going to look like a little record as opposed to a pin. So you can set the image. The image is just a built-in property of an annotation, so you can just set, if you wanted to change it to look like something else, you can just set whatever image you want there. And oh, okay. So if you're gonna use unique callout accessory views, you're gonna want to set them back to nil. If you're going to be reusing the pins, that's pretty important. Otherwise, you could get a pin with an old accessory view in it, right? So I'm setting that image to nil there. And this is the callout accessory view, not to be confused with the actual pin image itself. Here's my method for selecting the annotation. And so when the annotation itself is selected, this is where I'm going to set the view to be the record store logo. Okay, so we'll run that. There's one last thing I forgot to show you actually, which is how I set the overlay. But anyway, you can see these are my record stores. You click on each one, it's got the call out, so this is Weirdo Records. It's got a subtitle here, which is the address, and it's got this logo view and the detail disclosure button. Right, and so you'll get different ones for each record store. So there's In Your Ear Records and Cheapo Records. And so here was where I created the overlay. So remember, I created a circle up top, and then this is where I have to actually get it to come up on the map. So I'm basically just saying if overlay is kind of class circle, it could, just in case I had another one in there too. I'm allocating it. And then I'm setting the stroke color to be blue, and I'm giving it a line width, and then I'm returning it. Okay? So the last framework that I was going to talk about is the MediaPlayer framework. And just like MapKit and core location, you're going to want to, if you're going to use the MediaPlayer, you're going to want to import the framework and also do this import MediaPlayer /MediaPlayer.h. And then the main object in the MediaPlayer is the MP Movie Player controller. And this uses NS Notification Center instead of delegation. So when you use an MP Movie Player controller, you don't need to set anybody as the delegate. It's just going to send out these notifications that basically anybody can respond to. So it's like delegation, but it's a little different. And these are the types of notifications that it sends out. An MP Movie Player content preload did finish notification, and that basically will let you know when the movie finished loading. And then an MP Movie Player playback did finish notification will let you know when the movie ended. And then the playback state did change notification lets you know when the user pressed pause or drag that forward button, forwards or backwards. Just gives you that notification. And then the MP Movie Player scaling mode did change notification will let you know when the user, so say if you had a movie that wasn't taking up the full screen, it always gives you that option to fill up the whole screen by clicking on the expand button, and then this will trigger that notification if you do that. So back to the code. So what I'm doing here is I've imported I've linked the library, and I've obviously imported MediaPlayer, MediaPlayer.h. And what I'm just going to do is when you click on that detail disclosure button, I'm going to show a little movie of each record store. So I figured I'd try to get everything in one app. So let's see where I've got the code for that. So that is obviously going to be in the select view for annotation. Okay, here we go. Oh no, not in the selecting the annotation. This is where I'm using the annotation callout view, which is great. It's really helpful to not have to, implement some other method. It's just given for you with the MapKit. So map view Map view, annotation view, call out accessory control tapped UI control. That's what this view is. And so you can get the annotation, and then here I'm setting the movie player up. So I'm just allocating an MP movie player controller, and I can init it with an URL. So an NS URL is, let's see, I guess I've got that in my annotation. I don't, well, the URL is an object of NS URL, and let me see where I'm setting that. I must be setting that up here. Sorry. Okay, what I'm doing is these movies I actually have imported, and they're in my resources folder, and they're just .mov files over here. And so to create the URL out of that, I'm just doing this, ns URL, file URL with path, and then just like you would do your plist, this ns bundle, main bundle, path for resource, weirdo of type move. Okay, and that will create an URL out of your movie. So I'm just going to create the movie player and then init it with content URL or URL, record store annotation URL. And then you want to set a frame. And this is an important thing not to forget to do either. If you don't set the frame, the default frame is just 0 by 0, which means no movie. You will get sound, but you won't see a movie. And then I'm just going to go ahead. So I'm setting this movie to just be 320 by 320. And I'm adding the subview of the movie player view to myself, to my own view. And then I'm setting this NS notification default center thing here. I'm adding an observer, which is myself. And I just want to know when the movie is over. And so you can, so I'm basically, when the movie's over, I'm going to want to call this method, so this selector movie over, and I'm adding that to the name MP movie player playback did finish notification. So here's the notification, and so that's where you put this, and then you put your own method, your selector in here. And then you just go ahead and play the movie, self-movieplayer.play. Okay, and so then when the movie's over, I have to do self movie player view remove from super view, or it actually won't take itself away from the super view. So that's why I've got that in here. Okay, so I think the app is still running. So let's see if this works. Here's in your ear records. We'll play a movie.
Stock.
My husband took this in your records.
What's that in his hand?
There's the owner. You get this button for free. You can expand to fill the whole screen.
It is. I don't remember. I just know I price records here.
Look
at the records.
I'm not sure how to do that, actually.
iPhones. Yes, it's an iPhone.
Sorry, I don't know how to turn the volume up. But he's not saying anything interesting, trust me.
Hey, Gloria. It's Reed.
It's going to end in a minute, and then we'll be back to our map view. So that's basically all I have. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions.
Uh-huh.
One is for the URL, I assume you can just specify like a web.
Sure, yeah, you could specify a web page, yeah, as long as there's a movie in there, yeah.
Okay, or path to a movie.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And the second question is there was one of your lines has an object at the end. I think it was when the movie finished playing object, you had nil.
Yeah, that's, I'm not passing any parameter to that. I think that's where you
wanted to pass some specific.
yeah, if you want to pass something in there, I think that's where you put it in. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, well, the first question was, can you specify the URL to be something, you know, an HTML object or something that you find on a web page, which the answer to that is yes, as long as it's a movie type, I guess. And then the second question was to do with this here. So this object nil, this object is, I'm just not passing anything into the selector, but I think if you were going to pass a parameter into the selector, this is where you would put it. I'm going to double check on that, and if I'm wrong about that, I'll put a notice up on the help board, but I'm pretty sure I think this is where you pass in parameters here, and I just don't happen to have one. Because this movie over doesn't take any parameters. So Andrew, did you have a question?
Yeah, going back to the location services,
Mm-hmm.
The altitude or elevation data that you get, where does that come from? Is that
So the question is about...
If you're not using GPS.
Right, the altitude, where does the altitude come from if you're not using GPS? I think you might need to use GPS to get that.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure, but I think I think you need GPS for that. I know you don't always get the altitude. So, but I can check on that too. So, all right, were there any other questions? Great, well, thanks, and good luck with the hangman and student choice. So, thank you.